Hey everybody, I got a request to make a video on a particular subject, and I think there's one other subject out there that needs to be discussed. Football season's less than a week away, I think, actually, yeah. We got the first preseason game in less than a week, the Hall of Fame game, and then we get the preseason, and then we're a little more than a month away from the actual season, I guess, so we're almost there, and I'm going to be talking a lot of football as it comes to me. I'm going to try and do a serious fantasy league this year somewhere, um, and I'm definitely going to be making a ton of football videos when the season is about to start. So, for starters, I got a comment on my page asking if I could do a video about the Bengals signing Terrell Owens, and I don't really know what to do with that. I don't think there's a ton to say anymore. It is true that T.O. had 800 something receiving yards last year in a really dreadful quarterback situation. And my friend pointed that out to me because he's a Jets fan. He was kind of concerned about the Bengals getting a guy like T.O. And, my counter to that would be that 98 of those yards came on one broken play against Jacksonville. So I don't know how good he was last year. He made some plays, he had some moments, but really I don't know what he still has. So I don't think this is a huge deal. I kind of like this signing because obviously the Bengals lost Lavernius Coles, who was somewhat an important part of what they were doing. They lost. No, they still have Andre Caldwell, but you got Chad on one side, and they brought in another guy who can work defenses, but he's probably at least a number 3 receiver, maybe still a number 2 receiver at this point, but I don't really know what to expect from him right now because that was such an awful situation in Buffalo last year. I don't want to judge him based on that. We know he's going to drop passes. He should be able to make some plays. When you get right down to it, I think it's a pretty good signing. I think the reward here outweighs the risk. I don't think he's in a position to really harm anything anymore. So I think that's actually going to be a pretty exciting and fun team to watch. And at this stage, I'm rooting for him, at least in some limited degree. I don't know if I want T.O. to get a ring or have a lot of success in the twilight of his career, but I'm not against it like I'm against it for Randy Moss. So there you go. My thoughts are basically, I think that's going to be a fun team this year. I don't think the effect of assigning Terrell Owens is necessarily worth a whole video, but somebody asked what were my thoughts on it, and it's going to be interesting because I don't know what he has to offer at this point in his career because it's impossible to judge him based on last year. But the real thing that's video worthy here is the Brett Favre situation because it came to a climax this morning, and it looks like, at least according to him, he's going to retire. He's decided to not return to Minnesota, or any other team. He's decided to just go ahead and stay away for now. Now, obviously, I've already heard the theory that he's just trying to get more money out of Minnesota. If that's the case, that's unfortunate because Brett Favre's never going to need money again. He pretty much had a lifetime contract in Green Bay. He made a good amount of money in New York for 1 year and Minnesota for 1 year. He, does all the advertising campaigns, so that would be unfortunate if that was the case. I don't think that's the case. I think right now it's legit. He does want to retire, but stringing Minnesota along like this, I said this a long time ago, actually, that if Brett Favre did decide to go ahead and just retire after all of this, he was going to really leave Minnesota with no date to go to the prom with. And that really looks like what's going to happen right now because Minnesota has no quarterback, at least probably not, and they can't make a play for one. Had Brett Favre announced his intention to retire months ago, the Vikings probably could have and would have gone after Donovan McNabb or Mark Bulger or, somebody like that. And obviously they didn't get the chance to do it because they were hoping Favre was going to just come back. So that is self-centered on the part of Favre, that he wouldn't see that angle, or he did and he just didn't care, or he thought he was going to come back but at the last second decided not to. Either way, it's rough for Minnesota because they have a good team and they do need a quarterback, and now they're left without one. Now there's really nothing they can do in that market. So, assuming he does stay away from the NFL, which who knows, that kind of rules Minnesota out of the Super Bowl hunt for the time being. I think they're potentially 1 year away from fixing that problem. All they need to do is, McNabb has 1 year left on his deal. They could sign him next offseason. They could go after a guy like Mark Bulger, who I think is going to start floating around the league. They could do that. They could, there might even be a strike next year, so maybe this is all a moot point, but there are going to be options available to them pretty quickly. So if they are going to go into the tank, I think it's only going to be for one season, and the issue will resolve itself because there's going to be veteran quarterbacks out there to get. If he does come back, obviously that changes things. If he comes back, I want him to come back. And, Brett Favre has considered retirement 4 or 5 times in his career already. He's no stranger to the retirement dance. Will I or won't I? And most of the time he's done that, I've wanted him to retire. I felt it was time. I felt it was appropriate for him to go ahead and go out like this. I wanted him to retire. I don't want him to retire this time, simply because it would be more fun with him around. You can say whatever you want about him, and he deserves all of it, because he hasn't treated this entire situation, really the last 5 years, I guess 3 years, with the sensitivity it deserves. And I haven't liked many of the things he's done, but the league is more fun with him around. I mean, what's more interesting to you, a Minnesota Vikings team with Tavares Jackson or one with Brett Favre? It adds another contender to the mix. It makes things much more interesting. I want him back. As of right now, I don't expect him to be back. But, this is coming from me. This is coming from a guy who thought he should have retired before last year. A guy who thought he should have retired the year before. I think there's still a place for him in this league. He proved last year that he still had a little bit of something left, and I think the league is going to be more interesting if he stays, so I'm actually hoping for it. But kind of an unfortunate situation the way it's playing out, and as of right now, you gotta say he's not making himself any friends in this league. And, he's already alienated the Green Bay fan base. The Jets fan base doesn't care about him, so when he retires, you got to ask yourself, where is he going to run? I'll talk more football very much so in the near future, but for now I'm going to leave it at that, and see you guys later.